Good, Frank. Where'd you go, Frank?
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
All right.
You're good to go.
Um,
I see.
okay. So, do we have everybody in, Jen?
1, 2, 3. Yeah, we do.
We have 5.
Oh, unless Jen, I haven't seen Jen Foley.
She's not here tonight.
Okay. And Andrew isn't, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
All right. So good evening. Welcome to the December, what are we at? 4th
Yep.
meeting of Scituate Conservation Commission. A couple of quick things to read through. This meeting is being held virtual as an alternate means of public access pursuant to the Chapter 20 of the Acts 2021, temporarily amending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Scituate in accordance with the open meeting law. And then the town of Scituate commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. The Town of Scituate Conservation Commission is committed to providing an environment of respect during our meetings. We ask all members to interact in a polite manner, even when there is a disagreement. We value the participation, thank you, of our community and want all participants, including marginalized and minoritized communities, to feel welcome and respected. And we ask our committee members and all that participate to commit to these standards and to support and respect our community. Thank you. So we have an agenda for this evening. Do we have any additions or changes? Penny would like to just discuss a couple of CPC things at the end of the meeting. I don't think I have anything. Amy, do you have any
Extras? Nope.
Anybody else? Any additions?
Hi, Jake.
No.
Okay, great.
I'll make a
Alright.
motion. We accept the agenda with the add-on and the CPC discussion.
Great. And I have a second on that.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Richard,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
and Frank. Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Don't grab at me.
Excuse me. So the first one we have is 453 Chief Justice Cushing Highway. That was continued. We have someone from LEC on.
We have a request to continue that to
Oh, yeah.
December 18th, Frank. I'll make a motion to that effect.
That's a motion
I'll
from
second
Richard.
it.
Second from Penny. All in favor, Doug,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
Frank. Yes, thank you.
It goes somewhere else.
Okay, 0 and 40 Crescent Ave in red. And we have Ross Engineering, Grady Consulting, and I think Attorney DeLisi.
Hi, members of the board. Can you hear me? Jeff DeLisi.
Yes, Jeff.
Great.
Hi, Jeff. I also unmuted iPad, which I think is Paul Mirabito.
Yeah, this is Paul.
Hey,
Thanks.
Paul.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'll do a quick little intro just to let you guys know what we're thinking, then I'll turn it over to Paul.
Sounds good.
This property is out on Third Cliff at the intersection, basically where Peggotty Beach Road meets Crescent Avenue. The client has obtained zoning relief and a planning board A&R plan was filed to create a lot that has less than 100 feet of frontage and more than 50 feet of frontage. The issue is what we're trying to do now is to delineate the resource area so that any potential buyer could make plans to stay to to meet the act, essentially, in any plans that the potential buyer might have. And so the problem here is, and I think that I see that Deb Keller is on from Merrill Engineering. The issue that we're all kind of scratching our heads with is that the CMR, the DEP's CMR defines coastal bank, but does not define top of coastal bank. And so the question is where do you put it? On this particular property, you can see on Grady Engineering's plan that there's a significant amount of a coastal engineering structure, a revetment, a stone revetment, that is basically what everyone knows as the seawall. And that is essentially taken the place as the coastal bank. But because there is no definition of coastal bank, the CZM manual, which is not a part of the CMR, requires or provides guidance that you would follow a slope, which I think is contour number 23, in determining where that coastal bank is. And so as I review the regulation, as I look at administrative decisions which deal with this particular issue, the definition of coastal bank has to be the seaward face or the seaward side of any landform other than a coastal dune. And its purpose is to provide sediment or a vertical buffer to wave action. In this particular case, we believe that the revetment is the actual top of the coastal bank, or the crest or the top of the revetment is. And that is because it essentially acts as the coastal bank, as a vertical buffer, and it also prevents the land behind it, which is the slope land, from providing a sediment source or acting as a coastal buffer. And so so we're asking the commission's indulgence to exercise the discretion in the case here where there is not a definition, to determine that the top of the coastal bank is the top of the revetment or stone wall. And that determination would be entirely consistent with the precedent that this board has already adopted on adjacent properties on both sides. So that's pretty much it, and I'll ask Paul to chime in, and then I suppose the board might want to hear from Deb.
Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Hi, Frank.
Also, just briefly, I had provided to Amy and Frank, I think I CC'd you on it, a copy of a administrative decision, the DEP decision, which is in the matter of Nantucket Islands Land Bank, and then I think that's instructive here. And the decision adopted essentially the theory that I'm asking the commission to adopt now. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Frank and the members of the commission, this is Paul Marabito from Ross Engineering. I sat down with Deb Keller at Merrill, the peer review engineer, and we came up with the revised line that's shown on the plan. That line, as I described in my letter to the commission, is based upon policy 92-1 from the DEP. What that policy does is to establish the top of a coastal bank solely based upon the slope of the land for the locusts. However, in the DEP manual, there's two other issues that they talk about as they relate to a coastal bank. One is that the coastal bank would provide sediment on a continuous basis to a coastal beach below. If you look at the plan, we don't have a coastal beach down below the revetment. It's a rocky intertidal shore. So that function of the coastal bank is absent. The second function of a coastal bank is to act as a vertical buffer to storm waves. If you look at the plan, there's a FEMA flood zone line on it. On the ocean side, it's a velocity zone with elevation 21. And on the uphill side, it's zone X, which is not considered to be a flood zone. Having said that, and looking at the diagrams that were submitted to you by myself and Merrill, from the DEP manual about, how they interpret the velocity zones and the zone X's, I believe that the coastal bank zone line that was shown on the notice of intent application and the order conditions for the adjacent property to the left of 56 is correct. I further believe that in this case, I believe that the revetment is what's providing the buffer to the wave action, simply because of the size of it and its location. FEMA has their own engineering studies done, and they've determined that the waves would come up to elevation 21. Elevation 21 is actually on the revetment, but we typically show the FEMA flood zone line as it's scaled from their plan. And when we scale it, it's shown further uphill than the revetment. But in my letter to the commission, what I'm saying is two things: is that one, we don't have a coastal beach below, so there's no provision to provide sediment to the coastal beach. The second factor is that the vertical buffer on this site, we believe, is the revetment. I mean, the revetment was placed in a horizontal and vertical location based upon engineering studies done by FEMA, and there's no evidence on that site of any wave action ever going up into the upland area as shown on the plan. I spoke to the applicant who grew up in the area, and she indicated that they've never had waves coming up onto their property. Furthermore, that coastal bank line that we show at the lower elevation is the same one that the commission approved when you issued the order conditions for number 56, which is to the left of the site in question. That coastal line was established at number 40, even though you were reviewing the project for number 56. There was a transect that was actually done at number 40. That project was also peer reviewed by Bob Gray from Sebacia, and I believe Stan Humphries chimed in on that as well. So again, the line on the plan I show you is based upon the DEP policy 92-1, which I agreed to with Deb Keller. But I also wrote the letter to the commission to make the argument that we believe that the revetment itself is the actual vertical buffer to storm waves, and that the top of coastal bank should be the line that was shown on the original submittal to the commission. So I think with that, I'll end and answer any questions you may have.
Paul, just briefly, Paul, you indicated that you agreed to show the line that you show here based on the slopes with Deb, that you agreed to that, but you agreed to show it, but in actuality, you believe that the top of the bank is basically the top of the landform, consistent with the other properties. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, and that's what you're asking the commission to determine tonight, right?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll keep rolling through this. Probably, Amy, do you want to go next, or do you want Deb to comment first?
Where's Amy? There's Amy.
Hi, hello?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I would like to hear from Deb Keller. Maybe you want to go first, Amy, and then we
Yeah,
can
no, I'm gonna pass this to Deb, who is your peer consultant on this.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Deb Keller, Merrill, Engineers and Land Surveyors. So I did meet with Paul, and the way I'm looking at this is similar to I have a different perspective, but I think a similar approach in the sense that we did agree that the line that he put on the plan that he's noted as top of coastal bank as determined using the DEP policy 92-1, that is the policy that's in place to determine the top of coastal bank. So I think that line meets all of the criteria. He did provide some transects, two transects E and F through that area that determines from a slope perspective and evaluation under that policy that can be considered top of coastal bank. What I look under too, the one thing is noting the location of where the VE and the Zone X line is. There is a reference in the CZM document that it is titled Interpreting Federal Emergency Management Agency Flood Maps. They go and explain the reason why you have a VE that transitions into a Zone X and you don't have a Zone A in between those two. When that happens is your VE or your wave action, which is that elevation 21 that was mentioned, is very similar to, close enough that they don't map it out, your Zone A elevation or your 100-year flood zone. So I think I sent an email around saying that we should be looking at what they call figure 5, which shows you that your base flood elevation will be similar to that wave run up elevation, which is your VE 21, so that you want to follow that on the ground. So you're following that ground elevation. You don't follow the graphic drawing of that line that you get from the FEMA map. And therefore that 21 elevation runs along the revetment, but then turns into that slope. So the question here is that, I think you're going to be getting some wave action in the 100-year storm that comes all the way up to the elevation 21, which will flow through the adjacent property to that rear slope. So, and it's hard to tell without, backup information as to whether or not you get flooding in there. 56 Peggotty Beach is down at, elevation 16-ish. I don't know what the house is built at, but, I'd be a little, I don't know if that house provides some type of vertical barrier so that you don't get that wave action behind it. But I think that coastal bank should be interpreted by following the 21 elevation on the ground rather than the graphic interpretation of it from the FEMA map. And therefore, I think that top of coastal bank that goes between those two, the subject property as well as the abutting property 56 Peggotty Beach, would be considered coastal bank under the DEP policy 92-1. Hopefully that makes sense.
Ooh.
These things never are quite that clear, Deb.
No.
Amy, I'm assuming that you'd like to comment first. You must be muted or something.
He is.
Yes, I would like to comment.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, so I mean, they've asked you guys to issue, confirm with this plan the order of resource area delineation, right? So you're confirming whether or not what's shown on the plan is accurate or not. And so it's got to be accurate per the DEP policy. And I would say that, you know, you've got conflicting opinions on what's accurate here. The top of coastal bank would seem to me that it would be per the DEP policy or consistent with what Deb is saying, which would be following the FEMA line along the VE zone or that second bank. I think that the plan as shown, the one that you have in front of you is got quite a bit of conflicting information on it. So I don't think that I would suggest accepting it as is because of the ambiguity on the plans. So if you were to make a decision tonight, I think I would probably say that this plan is inaccurate and you know, ask them to qualify the information on the plan and to try to get that more accurate.
Right.
Frank, just for a second,
Sure.
I promise, 30 seconds. The one thing that I did note was that nowhere in the policy, which is not a CMR, it's the policy, nowhere in the policy is there any reference to what to do in the circumstance where there is a coastal engineered structure that essentially takes the place of the resource area that you're seeking to delineate. So I understand the policy has language which is based in slope, but that presupposes that that slope is acting as a sediment source or acting as a vertical buffer. And I think what Paul is saying is that this tremendous wall that you have down there is taking the place of the resource area, and that's why, because the policy doesn't reference what to do in the circumstance where there is something like this. That's, I think, the conundrum that we have going on here.
Well, it seems like if that's the case, then that decision would probably be better made at the state level, Frank, since this is not really a local matter, in my opinion, because you're talking about state resource areas.
But you have to make a determination before it even gets there, right?
Yeah.
Right, so the plan would be inaccurate, is what I would say.
Well, I guess I'm a little confused when you say the plan's inaccurate. I mean, we just heard from both the engineer and from our from Deb from a peer review that they've looked at this, that if you look at that, and I'm going to jump in just a little bit. I'm going to get it back to members, but I just want to get it a little tuned in. So if we look at that, was it example 5?
Yes, figure
Right.
5.
Figure 5. And in reviewing that, you seem there's just a thought that coastal bank could be at elevation 21, right? But then these things have always puzzled me because I've heard so many different conflicting pieces. You would kind of look at this and logic would tell you that top of coastal bank would be more at the top of the revetment or where that slope changes and that VE zone kicks in. So, I mean, I think all the information is on the plan. I think what's probably more important to the applicant is if they move forward, I'm assuming that they're dividing this or doing this with the intent of building something there.
Yeah.
So then you're going to have to determine your distance that a structure could be from the top of a coastal bank.
Frank,
Go ahead, Paul.
Frank, if I can add to something Jeff brought up, if you look at the line that was approved under the order conditions for number 56,
Yeah.
I believe I believe if they're using the same thinking that I'm using, as well as what Jeff had opined on about where the top of the coastal bank should be, which is on the revetment.
Right.
That line of 56 is just below the velocity zone line that is a scale from the FEMA map, and that's what was approved by the commission. If you look at the land behind that line, it actually drops down to like elevation 18 and 19, which is lower than 21.
Mhm.
But again, the commission took the top of the coastal bank where it's shown on my plan. What I did was to copy it, and I've noted that on the plan as well. That coastal bank line was also peer reviewed by Bob Gray from Sebacia, and Stan Humphries also chimed in on it for the applicant.
Okay.
So, again, the other thing I'll point out is in the ANRAD packet, there's a untitled map, which is in color. It's from Google Earth, and it shows the revetment, and the lower portion of it is a darker color, which I believe is the mean high water line, which is also the property line of the lot. That's pretty much where the water level is on a day-to-day basis. But again, FEMA's mapped it for storm purposes to be up at elevation 21. And again, I believe the revetment was built in the location both horizontally and vertically to protect the base of that cliff so it wouldn't fall into the ocean. And that's why they've picked elevation 21. The top of the revetment is actually up around elevation 22 or 23,
Mhm.
shown on our map. Those
In
contour
some
lines-
places, and then it's down to
Part of it.
14.
Yeah, but those contours are based upon our own survey. We did do the topo for number 40. When you issued the NOI for 56, they didn't have the topo at number 40 that we have. Even though at number 56, they did do some transects on the property at number 40. And based upon their results in the peer review, you came up with a line that's shown on my plan that's still valid.
Okay.
But
Go ahead.
Frank, if I could just make a note on that, it's
Sure.
valid up to a certain point, but again, I think, between sections B and C is where that limit stopped for the approval for 56 Peggotty. My understanding from looking at the plan that was for 56 Peggotty, none of that back topography and the major component, portion of 40 Crescent were shown on that plan. So it kind of lends to believe that they were looking at it more for the 56 Peggotty Beach property itself and any types of, extending that so that you get the correct offsets so that you know where the resources are and where your no disturbs are, versus actually looking at the line in relationship to 40 Crescent as a whole or as an entire property. And so that's where I think we're now coming to play and looking at it and going, per the policy, there looks to be a second coastal bank, which is more landward than the one that was previously approved.
Okay. And we've certainly gotten into that before as
Yeah.
well. I'm gonna dish this out to members first, and then it will circle around again. And I just think the best person to field that one is Doug.
Lucky Doug. He's jumping at it. Frank.
Yeah.
He's all excited.
Well, these do get complicated. They're always
Very
troubling when you're following contours and they jump up the slope because of the change in slope, and you get this really jagged, funky looking flood zone, and you're like,
Yeah.
water doesn't really behave that way. But that when you're technically following the determination that's spelled out, you do end up with that sometimes. Which always seems like, well, it should be something, some better way to determine that, but that's still, and we've seen a lot of those submitted to the commission where you know, that you have a line that's going along and it looks, you know, continuous and it makes sense, like this following the top of the embankment, that all makes sense. And then all of a sudden, when the slopes change, it diverts and goes somewhere else. It's, you know, I guess I'm going to be looking for, you know, a way in. I mean, I can see why this plan, I guess, is accurate because it shows two different flood zones. They would like to hold the one lower. For obvious reasons. It's far less restrictive if you hold that upper one. It's too bad that in 56, that one was submitted without the like Paul suggested, didn't have the other topography on there. So they didn't, you know, if you look at that in an isolated view, it makes sense. And it's following what the FEMA map shows as a, you know, a flood zone. But if you're following the slopes, it moves more inward, and it does seem like a conflicting determination. But Deb made the statement that she believes there would be wave action up there, or for 56, and
Maybe can we get Deb? Do you want to just quantify that a little bit, like where you thought that
Sure.
was-
Where I'm coming from is going back to, and it really doesn't have to do with the definition of coastal bank, but it's the definition or reading of how to interpret where that limit between the VE zone and the zone X end up. And normally when we see a VE zone, you know, and it's out, you know, sort of on the edge of the beach, we don't worry about it because we look at it and go, it's a wave action. It's not our flood zone. We've got our zone AE up landward or up gradient of that limit. And in this scenario or in this situation, we don't, they're not mapping an A zone or your 100-year flood zone. So we're going from a VE, which is your, you know, wave action with an elevation of 21 to a zone X immediately. So to me, I always look at this and I kind of have to stare at it a lot because I go, okay, so you're telling me that wave action just disappears and that area isn't going to flood? If the wave is up at 21 and you've got elevations of 15, 16, 17, 18 there, you know, water's going to be rushing in there with a wave action of elevation 21. So when you go back to this interpretation of the FEMA map and you look at figure 5, which is what I submitted in my last email, it's basically saying that your base flood elevation is equal to your VE elevation, which in this case is 21. So I go and I say, okay, so in reality, my flood zone is elevation 21. So now I'm following it around that slope. And so with that, you start looking at that slope here, because you're saying I have flooding all the way up in between those two homes. You know, it's going to flood out 56 Peggotty Beach. And now I'm looking at the slope and I'm using the policy 92.1 to determine where that top of bank is from that flood zone. So that's how I'm sort of looking at it, saying there through the DEP policy, it looks to me like a second coastal bank. But I have to agree that, you know, the definition of coastal bank makes it hard to kind of coincide the two and really make them, you know, work hand in hand.
Thank you.
Yeah,
The two definitions are at odds, and my point is that the definition of coastal bank is that it has to be the seaward face or the seaward side of any landform other than a coastal dune. And so here you have this structure, which is the landform. And I understand what Deb is saying, because she's looking at the FEMA line, which doesn't necessarily is not necessarily adopted as part of the decision of the definition of coastal bank. But I think that the commission needs to look at, is this a coastal bank? Not whether is this in the flood zone. I mean, if that area was subject to wave action, that entire house next door would be pummeled by waves. It's just not the case in reality, even though that's, I think, what the policy says. But I would ask the board to look at the definition of coastal bank: seaward face or seaward side of any landform. And if the wall is a landform, then there's your bank. So that's just my thought.
Okay, thank you. Doug, I kind of cut you off, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I think a question that I have, I guess maybe Amy can ask this, is there any way to get input on an ANRAD like this from DEP regarding this, other than,
No,
you know, something like an appeal or having them file a LOMA and you know, trying to make a determination at those flood zones. I mean, I agree with Deb's assessment. These are much more clear when it goes from a V zone to an A zone and then to an X zone, because that's how water behaves. So we're taking that and then maybe extrapolating a little bit that's up to the top of the coastal bank. I mean, I understand the applicant's concern with that because of the strict restrictive nature that's going to put on that lot. But I also don't think, yeah, I mean, do we have any method of getting that kind of input?
Doug, this is Paul. What I can tell you is that the DEP is likely to refer you back to the policy of 92-1, which both I and Deb looked at, and that's how we came up with that line. But what I'm saying in addition to that's one factor. But when you look at the 310 CMR, they talk about a coastal bank being a significant and a continuous source of sediment to a coastal beach below. We don't have a coastal beach below, number one. Number two, there's no evidence of any erosion out there. The photograph in the ANRAD, which is the untitled photograph, that shows a fair amount of vegetation on the lot as well, which can also protect the bank. The other factor is that the coastal bank has to act as a vertical buffer to storm waves. And I believe that the revetment on the seaward face of the property is the vehicle which is breaking the wave action. So you don't have the ability to wash out the upland area, similar to what you see on some coastal banks that are not protected with a revetment. I mean, you don't have any of those two factors. You know, we're focused on the slope, but if you read the 310 CMR, there's two other things you have to look at, which I just described. It seems like that's not being looked at. And if it is, I think, for lack of a better word, I think common sense would indicate that the revetment is what's breaking those waves, so you don't have the washout of the upland area at number 40 Crescent Ave. I mean, the left side of that lot is lower in elevation. It probably does get water into it, you know, based upon the low elevation coming over from number 56. But again, that landmass, the majority of number 40 isn't washing out. It's not falling off into the ocean. And I think it's because the seaward face of that being the revetment is what's preventing that from happening. I mean, if the revetment wasn't there, yeah, I think you'd have some considerable washout, but that's not the case. You know,
Well,
again,
again, I understand your position and why you would take that I guess I'm looking for, how can we be, is there, how can we be accurate and consistent?
So
Because right
that's,
now
that's
we're
exactly what
we're not.
you are being asked is to either say it's accurate or inaccurate. That's it. You're not being asked to interpret the regulations or be subjective or try out what they mean, or is it that, is it this? Like, is it a sediment source? Is it not? That we're not trying to figure that out at this point. It just, is it, coastal
Right.
bank? That's
Yeah,
it.
which sounds to me, I mean, when we look at things like that, we're following strictly by the language.
Yeah, it's the
And that leads
policy
me to,
and the slope. Yeah.
yeah, and if that's, and we have, a review consultant who has indicated that it should be up to the top of that, the upper line there. Let somebody else.
Okay, yeah, we'll circle around this, but can't be at this all night either. Can I ask one more question before I move it on? Is there a way to designate as like a first and second coastal bank when we have multiple ones? I don't know if that policy 92-1 signifies that.
Yeah.
But
I don't think you can definitely have multiple coastal banks on a property. That's indicated in both the coastal bank definition as well as, I believe, the policy. I don't know if they tell you how you're supposed to designate it, but I've seen it as Coastal Bank 1 and Coastal Bank 2. And you just, that way you're indicating on the property that there's more than one coastal bank.
okay, thank you.
Frank, we show one on the revetment on the left side. It says top of coastal bank. The riprap comes up a ways and then it flattens out and then continues to slope up again. It's on the left-hand side. It says top of coastal bank on the revetment.
Got it. Yeah, I
That's
see
one.
that.
And then the other one would be the one that was approved by the commission for number 56. And the third one would be the one that I and Deb laid out last week, which says top of coastal bank is determined by DEP policy 92-1.
Got it.
Which
Okay.
does not reference anything about coastal engineering structures. It presupposes that there is none. That's the
Right.
flaw. That's the flaw in using that policy in this circumstance. Paul, just briefly, the on 56 Pagany Beach Road, is that, where was the line? If you were to draw the line that was established by the commission in that all the way through this property, would it be the Zone X VE line? Is that it?
It's the line we show on the plan as the coastal bank is delineated and approved in the order conditions issued on May 3rd of 2021. That line is shown on our plan. There's a small bump up and then it continues over to the right side of number 40, just below the FEMA flood zone line.
And that's what you're asking here.
Yes, that's what we're asking. Yeah, I think it's consistent with the landform out there, and when you also look at what the functions of the two functions of a coastal bank are.
Okay. Penny?
Oh, I don't like this project at all. This is just way. I don't want to make the wrong decision. I don't want to penalize the homeowners in trying to get another lot. But then again, I don't want to get the Conservation Commission in trouble if we are supposed to be looking at this coastal bank that goes in across the property, which is absolutely bizarre to me. Because it's nowhere near the water. Anyways, I just don't know what to say. I think it really needs to, sad to say, get a denial and appeal it to the state. Cause I'm not
Well,
comfortable
before,
either this way.
before that,
Yeah,
I
but
mean-
I'm just not comfortable. I see both sides of what they're saying, and I agree with both, but I don't want to get in trouble.
okay,
So
all right.
that
Richard,
I'm in no man's land.
Yeah, I can understand Penny's concern, and this is certainly not my strong point. I see the inconsistency on the one
Yep.
hand, between the VE 21 on the one hand, it goes across slightly lower between where it comes up to VE 21 and Zone X meet. It just, to me, I wish it was just Zone X and the friggin' line went straight up that way. And it would be, to me, a little more easy to figure out. I don't know what to say. I honestly don't. The one thing that keeps striking me is all of these things are set up for 100-year storm. So if you don't have a storm in 100 years, but then you have two within 200 years, it's just incredibly complicated to me. I'm sorry, I'm not being much help here, except that I do agree there should be some consistency, and I don't see it happening.
Brendan, thank you, Richard.
Yeah, I think
Are you glad you live in the West End?
I am. Yeah, I have no
Yeah.
coastal bank. Not yet. No coastal bank here yet. But
Someday.
yeah, this is very confusing as to which one is the one that should be. I don't have very much more to add than that.
Because, Frank,
Yes, Penny.
my problem is this is an ANRAD. All right, so of course they want as much land as they possibly can for somebody to build on the ocean side here of the Pitts house. So I can understand that, but once we stamp it, it's done, the ANRAD. And I just don't want to make a huge mistake and get in trouble with another project down the road. That's the problem.
Well, I don't see the problem in accepting this. I mean, right now we have a plan from Paul that shows multiple coastal banks. So accepting this plan, I don't see why that would be an issue. I mean, he's showing a coastal bank. Deb concurs with that. Whether we call it a primary, secondary, or whatever, it doesn't even seem like that definition exists.
Oh, I see what you're getting at. So
Just-
wait
we-
until they come back with a plan for a house?
Well, I guess I'm saying, if an ANRAD is supposed to depict
Yeah,
and show an accurate resource areas. So
right,
right now I'm looking at a plan that shows
okay,
calling out multiple coastal banks, which
Yeah.
happens. You know,
Okay.
we all, or most of us here, agree that you can have multiple coastal banks.
yeah.
And I guess the question I had, is there a primary, secondary bank? And apparently there's no definition that works for that. So we can accept this plan unless we want another opinion as to whether that coastal bank at elevation 21 should, or the more recent one that's above 56 should even be on there as a coastal bank. And I don't know, is that
It
something that
qualifies it, though.
if you look
It
at
does qualify it because it says it's as shown on, the order of conditions from 2021.
I am hesitant to accept this as the fact, just because there's also a top of coastal bank that's part of the revetment, and I haven't found anything in my research that says that engineered structures could be top of coastal bank.
it's funny, Brendan, when I first got on, that was like everybody just pegged the top of a structure as coastal bank, and then they revisited all that, and then they've changed it to this type of thing. But So I guess the question would be, can we accept this plan showing multiple coastal banks? Right? I mean,
I-
is one being shown at that right near the elevation 21, the VE zone X, right?
Mhm.
We have one coastal bank shown there. And then we have another one
Coming in.
up on the top of that slope.
Yep.
So,
Yeah,
Amy, if you gave this plan to someone like Greg DeCesar, what would how would they weigh in?
I think I think it's a little bit confusing.
To say the least.
Well, it is, I mean, the plan is drafted in an order to make an argument to hold that lower line with the statements of not a coastal beach, you know, rock, in the revetment. So even though it calls out top of a coastal bank more than once, I mean, there is ambiguity in the plan itself, so.
Mhm.
Well, we're looking for consistency. I think Penny mentioned the word consistency. The consistency here is to carry forward the line that was determined in the still live order of conditions for 56 Peggy Beach Road, which I know Penny said you don't want to get in trouble in the future. Well, that's the consistency right there, is you didn't get in trouble there. And we're just
Well,
asking
not
the
yet.
same
I
interpretation.
feel as though we are in trouble
I
now.
would
Right.
say we're in
Right.
trouble right now.
Yeah, I
Like,
think this is
that's
the
what,
trouble.
yeah, this is the trouble. I mean, we didn't do it right before, and just to continue that out of inconsistent, or you know, an argument of being consistently, I don't want to just be consistently wrong either.
Well, we've had this issue before where, you know, we get a wetlands line or something, or we don't. We come to find out that there is a resource area on an adjacent piece of property that we didn't have information on. So now we have that information because we're looking at a larger piece of property. But my point is, all these lines, unless we're going to say that that first line is not a coastal bank, but I think we're hearing from our peer review from Deb that there can be multiple ones, and there would be make a case that what they're showing, actually the detail shows coastal bank is delineated and approved in orders. So how is that not true?
Okay, yeah. Frank,
Yes.
one thing, they would have to agree with us, because right from the get-go, Jeff stated that Paul only put the second coastal blank on there just to show us, but if we do accept this, we are accepting that there are multiple coastal banks,
Yeah.
and this would be the plan that we're accepting.
Right.
Okay, Jeff?
But
You
what
hear?
what it's saying is,
Yeah,
that in the corner, showing that line at the VE zone, coastal bank is delineated and approved in an order of conditions of May 3rd, 21. Well, why is that not true? It is true.
oh, I'm not saying it isn't.
So,
what-
but
what I'm-
so what we're trying to,
Okay.
in this plan, we're going to say that everything that on this is in accordance with the
Okay.
information we have. So
Yep.
we know that line, I don't, did that line actually get accepted all the way up this to the other end of this property? Or did it?
Yes. It did, Frank.
So that,
No.
On the Pitts property?
This is the pit. This is the Pitts property.
No, I know this is the pit,
but my question is this, the line that's shown here, the arrow points to it and it says that's the coastal bank that was delineated and approved. And it's pointing to a line there, but on the plan that was approved in 21, did that line actually be drawn along this whole
area.
piece of property that we're seeing now? Or did it stop at that property line or somewhere right around there?
No, it kept going under the number 40 because one of the transects that the
No.
peer review engineer was asked to do was actually on the land at number 40.
Yeah,
I've got the site plan here from Morse.
go ahead, Deb.
I'm looking at the Morse plan. That transect C is where they stop. So that's mid, right where you see the little point in that
Okay,
coastal bank zone coming. That transect C is where they stopped, and they limited their topography to that point. So they don't have any other topography on 40 Crescent that they're
Okay.
interpreting.
All right.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying, yeah.
So that's why you've got the funky little divot there.
Got it. Okay.
Right.
So back to my question, Amy, if could we get someone from DEP to weigh in on this before we make a decision?
Well, so I think, I mean, first of all, we've already had CZN give us
I'm not
some
asking for
comments
somebody from DEP. All
already, but DEP, no.
right,
Not
I mean,
if this is a possible appeal case, they're not gonna come in on this one again.
I think they've issued the file number as well, Frank, for the ANRAD with no comments.
Interesting.
well, I think that they just crank them out.
Well, that's not surprising. This is an ANRAD.
Right,
You
right.
know what I
No,
mean? So that's not surprising at all. And I think that this is also would be, I mean, this could, at this point, this could go a couple of ways. I mean, one would be the applicant could modify this plan so that it's puts you in a position so that you could accept it because it's, you know, you could agree to it because it's easier to accept, right? You know, you're more comfortable with it. Or you close it tonight and then you just say that, you know, you don't agree with everything that's on the plan. And then maybe they don't agree with that and then they take it to DEP. And
What don't we agree with though, Amy? They're showing
what's-
two coastal
You don't
banks.
agree that the revetment is top of coastal bank, for instance.
well, so for right now, I think that would be the line to me. Deb just pointed this out. So when they pointed that line, the one that was delineated and determined,
Yeah,
we delineated that up to there's a little C on that
right.
point that
Mhm.
runs in.
Mhm.
So if we were, then they're still calling out top of coastal bank going sort of north of that C,
Yeah,
that would be a line that we might not accept. Doug, am I you following this?
Yeah, well, okay, so in an ANRAD, is the only thing we're accepting is the plan, because there's a letter that goes along with this. And the letter specifically says that upper determination of the line by policy 92-1 is invalid. So that's the part that I don't feel comfortable with, because this accepting this the way it is with no further clarification sounds like we're accepting the argument that we're going to only hold
Yeah.
that lower line or the top of the revetment. There is still a little ambiguity there with what we're supposed to be doing.
Okay.
So that's the
They're
problem I
asking you
have
to
with
do
it,
is to
because
look,
that the letter that accompanied this was very specific in making the argument that upper coastal bank line is inaccurate or invalid.
Correct.
so get us a new letter that they accepted.
I'm only worried about you guys, not us. That's all.
Mm.
Let me see if I can.
Ah,
I think
Just
what
accept
I
the
want.
plan and then just say that you don't agree to that. You know what I mean? But I'm not so sure I would do that.
the alternative, can people hear me?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
Okay,
we're
the alternative
We
might,
could even see you.
the alternative might be to continue this.
Yes.
And in the interim, maybe apply for a notice of intent with based on certain assumptions for a disturbed area. And then indicate that we don't believe the upper line is valid, but we're showing it and nonetheless requesting a variance because we don't think that there would be any adverse impact. Frankly, the whole reason why we applied for an ANRAD was because a buyer can't assume that the commission would find no adverse impact and grant a variance to the upper line. But I'm wondering, because I don't want to be in a situation where I'm appealing to Mass DEP, even though I think we have an interesting appeal, especially in light of some decisions I found, but I don't want to be appealing to Mass DEP a negative determination, not negative determination, because that's a term of art, but appealing a determination that it's multiple coastal banks, and then just to find myself back to square one, applying for a variance because of the apparent conditions of this property. So I'm wondering if maybe the alternative, if the board thinks that it's going to try to adopt a plan here that determines the resource area in multiple locations, then maybe I would request a continuance and then maybe file a notice of intent and be back showing the commission how what we're doing would not be an adverse impact to either resource area. If you understand what I'm saying.
Kind of. Can I ask a question? I do, Jeff, and I'm thinking that although I don't want to be at another hearing for this thing, I don't see that we have much choice. Question for either Paul or Deb. So when the top of coastal bank was determined on that on 56, and they ran that coastal bank up to C, and then it ended. So Paul extrapolated that line out, and he has that line. Do we feel that that is an accurate location for that top of coastal bank, and then it turns in on the new line that we had? Do we feel like that's the right?
So where
So-
Paul has transect D?
Yes.
I feel that portion from that property line, that plan to the right property line down to where we split off or to transect C would be relatively the correct, in my opinion, would be the correct top of coastal bank delineation, because you're going from the VE of 21, which is within that revetment, and you're looking at the run up and you're looking at the slope through the DEP policy, and that's your change in grade that's shown.
Okay. So this could be a true plan if the top of coastal bank line from that transect C, that tip of that point, to where the line changes, if that were just eliminated right there, wouldn't this be an accurate plan? Less the
Oh,
letter,
I see what you're saying.
less the letter, just the plan.
You'd be showing what you would consider as the most landward coastal bank,
Right.
and then you're not going against what was already approved for the abutting property.
Right.
So you'd be showing the same line there.
Okay.
Frank, is your question limited to just to the point of the transect C, or are you going beyond the transect C, so to speak, to the right of it?
I think that there's a section of that line that could not be on the plan if we were to accept this. From C to where,
The A at 56.
it's right next to elevation 24, 25, 26. There's
Yeah,
that line, that to me is not a line that would have shown up before. You just can't extrapolate that line out further than where it ended on Morse's plan.
I don't understand what you're saying, Frank.
Well, I think we're going to be at this too long tonight, so I think we're going to continue this, and then you can think about whether you want to just do a notice of intent, or we can take a look at this and see whether you want to modify that plan. But I don't think we're not going to. If we close this, we probably can't accept it. So I think either way you want to continue it. I don't know how much time you'd want.
So Frank, what you're suggesting is that we take off the top of coastal bank line that we label as the one approved in the order conditions in 2021
And
from
you
number,
can,
from number 56 up to the point where we leave that line and we go uphill on number 40.
that's right.
All right.
But that doesn't do us any good, because you still have to determine whether that upper bank exists or doesn't exist as a top of a coastal bank, right?
Right. I mean, you're showing it that it is, but you're saying in a letter that you disagree.
No. We're showing it because we were asked to show it as because that's what the policy says.
Okay.
But our determination of the definition and what we've asked the commission hasn't changed. And that is that it is essentially the zone VE, zone X line, which follows the contour of the top of the coastal engineered structure.
Right.
It's consistent, we think, with other determinations by the commission, and makes rational sense.
I'm not disagreeing with you, Jeff. I'm just.
I know, but I want you to be clear that the area that we're saying to Doug's point, as determined using DEP policy 92.1 is shown because we recognize that that's what DEP policy says. We don't think that that's the line in light of the fact that there is a structure here, and that policy doesn't take into account that there would ever be a structure. It thinks that the bank, that contour, that's the top of that slope, is essentially the landform that feeds the beach and acts as a vertical buffer. In this case, it doesn't. And that's why we disagree. And it's because there's a structure, and the DEP policy doesn't even take into account that there would ever be a structure
Okay.
in its place. So what we're asking the commission is to determine the zone X, zone VE21 line all the way across the property as the delineation of the top of the bank. And if it's not inclined to do that because of the policy and Deb's very, very wise advice to the commission, then I would continue. I would request a continuance at that point to confer with my client and maybe to just file an NOI and tackle it from that perspective.
All right. Well, we're not going to get any further here. I don't think anybody here is ready to accept this plan tonight. At least, do you want to vote?
I'd rather vote on a continuance.
Okay. Okay.
Smart.
How much time?
Who said smart?
after
Well,
the,
I'm only going to request a 2-week continuance, but I'll probably know in a matter of days where I'm going with that, and I'll write to the board.
Okay. So what's the 18th?
18th.
Can we do this on the 18th? As long as it doesn't take this much time again.
We
I-
can.
Okay, well then
Yes,
we'll go
January.
beyond it. I don't want to argue about the date.
What's the next available time, Jen?
4th.
1/4.
Wait a minute,
2/4.
January 8th? Not the 4th.
No, it wouldn't be the 4th. It would be the 8th. You're right.
Okay.
1/8.
And we
Yep.
won't rehash all this, so long as you guys promise to remember it all.
Oh, yes. I'll never
Uh,
forget tonight.
How about Deb? Does that work for you?
January 8th sounds fine with me.
Good. Well, thanks
You don't
for
want to
your.
meet on New Year's?
All right, so we have a motion from somebody who made
I
that
make a
motion.
motion, we continue 40 Crescent until January 8th,
That's Penny.
2024.
A second.
I'll second that.
Second from Brendan. All in favor, Richard,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
and Frank, yes. Well, that was.
Goodness, we started with an easy one.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
It's been fun.
5 Shoalwater.
That's raise and rebuild.
On December 4th, 2023 at 6 p.m., the Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Paul Devlin Jr. for work related to raising and reconstructing a single-family dwelling at location 5 Shoalwater, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the virtual meeting will be available on the agenda posted on the town website.
Cameron Larson from ECR is on the line.
Yes, thanks, Amy. Thanks, Commission. This is Cameron Larson with Environmental Consulting and Restoration, and I'd be happy to proceed with the presentation if the Commission's ready.
We're ready.
Excellent. I can assure you I can keep this one quick for you.
You'll get points for that.
Good. So, yeah, this is a notice of intent we have here. We've submitted on behalf of the property owner and applicant Paul Devlin Jr. It's a residential property. There's an existing single-family home, an existing existing paved driveway, deck to the rear, and then surrounded by typical landscaping and maintained lawn. Off to the east of the site is Musquashcut Pond and associated BVW that was delineated by ECR. I'm showing on the plan. So that buffer zone does extend over the site and into our work area. The site also contains land subject to coastal storm flowage within the work area as well. Amy, if you don't mind scrolling off to the right here, we can start looking at the proposed conditions. This project was submitted to permit the demolition of the existing home and the reconstruction of a new home. Be very similar in nature. This will require removing the existing home, removing the existing deck and the existing paved driveway, and reconstructing in the same general footprint. We are within land subject coastal storm flowage, so the building will be elevated above the flood zone. That'll all be compliant with the FEMA regulations, and of course we'll have to go to the building department to make the determination that it's all in FEMA compliance. The foundation will utilize flood vents to comply with those FEMA requirements. Aside from the flood zone, we're also within the buffer zone to the BVW. We are keeping it all outside of the 50-foot buffer. This work's contained within the previously developed portion of the site. So we're not disturbing any of the buffer or anything like that. The expansion of the home is westward, away from the resource areas and away from, and actually outside the 100-foot buffer. And at the end of the day, the entire structure itself will be slightly further from the BVW than currently exists. And then additionally, the paved driveway is going to be removed and converted to a permeable surface. Erosion controls will all be installed prior to the start of work, and then once work's completed, the site will be stabilized. It'll be restoring lawn and then native landscape plants. So all landscape material within the buffer will be native. So with that, I'd be happy to address any questions that the commission may have.
Amy?
Yeah, thanks, Cameron. Yeah, so, so this is a land subject to coastal storm flowage buffer zone project, where they're, taking the house and making it compliant with, flood zone, FEMA regs, and pulling it slightly back from the pond. Would be good if they could add a buffer strip. DEP had no comments. And it's pretty straightforward. I don't really have too much to say. Would be good if we could have some mitigation, good mitigation plantings along Musquashkett. Might be nice. Other than that, I don't have much else to add.
Okay. Richard?
No, I don't have a lot of problem. I'm a little, I appreciate the side by side, first of all. That's very helpful to me. And it does look slightly removed back. Can you give two quick questions? Number one, the total size differential between the footprint now and the footprint that it will be. And the second question, you have it, is the driveway is going to be permeable now, but it's not permeable. I'm sorry, permeable when it's rebuilt, but not permeable now. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so how much of the what's the size of the driveway?
The size of the driveway, I don't have for you exactly. We do note on the plan impervious surfaces. So this includes the entire site, so not just within the jurisdiction, or not just within the 100-foot. So the current is 3276, and that goes up to 4038. But again, a lot of that is outside that 100-foot buffer. The majority of it's outside the 100-foot buffer, which you can see runs through kind of the center there of the home. So everything to the west is outside that 100-foot.
And the difference in the size of the house from current to new?
That I don't have an exact number. That's included in the impervious calculation. So that jump from 3276 to 4038 includes
Okay.
the increase of driveway and house, all in one number.
I agree with Amy. We need some mitigation here, but that's fine. I appreciate it. Thank you. Good, Frank.
Brendan?
Yeah, I'd like to see some mitigation along the pond as well. I guess that's all I really am gonna say about this right now.
Okay.
Thanks.
Penny?
They don't like Phragmites, Frank?
Huh.
They want fancy mitigation? No, I have nothing. But the frag will grow there very nicely.
Doug?
Come on, Doug.
No, no, I agree with what's been said. I think,
Yeah.
little mitigation will be fine. And everything's gonna be built in accordance with FEMA regs, so.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Do we have anybody in the audience for this one?
Saying none.
Okay. So I think Amy's point is good. Maybe a combination of
Wild.
either Phragmite eradication and some mitigation. I don't know. If you want to talk with,
I think most of the Phragmites are actually off-site. You can see the BVW kind of follows off-site, so I don't think we're going to be proposing any work off-site for Phragmite removal.
okay,
And again, I just want to stress, we are moving the structure further from the resource area. We're elevating it above the flood zone. These are all vast improvements. I don't have the square footage of actual structure in the buffer zone. We could calculate that, but if it's an increase, it's a very small increase, and I'd venture to say maybe even a decrease possibly. If there's I'm not familiar with any policy in town that requires specific mitigation. If you're looking for 1-to-1 for square footage, I would just need some direction. I'm not familiar with.
so typically what we might look for on these properties, I'm looking at the distances from the property line. On one corner, the distance to the property line is 66. The new one is 62. So that's really like 4 foot closer. And on the other side, the distance from the new proposed was 37 in the existing, and it's down to 34, but there's no deck in front of the property anymore. So it's pretty much as close, or maybe a little closer. And so typically what we've been looking for in these things is maybe a strip of plantings, 6 feet, 8 feet, someone else can weigh in, running along the Musquashka Pond, of plant materials that could be considered, for your client. They'd be good looking kind of plants, but something that would benefit the environment, wildlife kind of thing, as opposed to having the edge of the lawn run right up to that line. Does anybody else want to comment on what they might like to see there?
Well, that's what I was thinking, Frank. You described it well.
And we could actually close with a condition
Yeah.
to get some sort of strip of mitigation.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's what they're doing is a great, is a benefit. So, if we come up with a strip, I don't know, anybody have any real strong feeling, 6 feet, 8 feet strip along that's planted out, and you and Brad could come up with a.
Yeah, that's fine. I just don't know. I mean, are we just pulling numbers out of thin air, the 6 to 8 feet, or I don't want to argue the fact that, I think this is, I don't think it's unreasonable, but again, all this works outside the 50-foot buffer to BVW. I mean, I don't want to,
But the work, it is within the 100, and
right.
I don't think it's increased a lot. And I also think that removing the driveway is a real plus.
Sure.
So I really don't have a strong feeling on the width of that. If it's 6 feet, or I don't know.
8 would be fine. That would be the minimal usually, Frank.
But again, I mean, like you said, you're going to also have a strip of frags from there out.
Yeah.
So just looking for some habitat, sort of some habitat improvements.
For the bunnies to run in.
Well, the bunnies will find their way anyways.
Oh, you're a poopy.
It's a
Doug?
new word.
Richard, anybody?
No, I think 6 to 8. I think 6 feet's fine, actually.
Okay.
But I think there does need to be something, and there, yes, it's an overall improvement, but there are still some changes that are being made that we're willing to allow. That, in the grand scheme of things, it's a little different. Overall, an improvement, though, no question.
Okay.
You're intensifying the use within the within the 100-foot buffer, so and you're asking them to improve the native conditions around Musquashkett, so it's what you consistently ask for in other new builds.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, Cameron?
Yep, no problem. We can put together a 6-foot planting buffer along the BBW line there.
Yeah,
Definitely
give me
good native
go.
vegetables.
Blueberry
If we
bushes.
close it, we'll need a plan. Amy will need a plan in office of
No
what it's gonna be.
We can pull that together. We'll, if you want to condition it, we'll pull together that planting plan and get that over to you as soon as possible.
Okay.
Okay,
You,
so-
can I add one more little thing? And your commission members are gonna laugh at me and you're gonna think I'm being picky, but was looking all over this. I don't see a benchmark or a vertical datum on the plan anywhere. I could be missing it, but because it's in a flood zone, it'd be nice to have a datum reference on there so you can easily relate between the FEMA flood zones and the elevations shown on the plan. That's all. I'm sure your surveyor has one, but just add that through the
We can
plan
add a note.
somewhere.
Sure, we can add a note on the plan to that.
Thanks.
Okay,
All right.
Make a motion to close.
That's from Richard. Do we have a second?
second,
From Penny, all in favor, Doug,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
Frank, yes. Great. Thank you, Cameron.
Very
Excellent.
good.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
You too.
Yeah.
2 Bailey's Island. Someone from Morse Engineering.
I think you're gonna open
You're gonna open this one, Frank.
Oh, shoot.
it.
On December 4th, 2023 at 6 p.m., the Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws and Section 32050 Town of Scituate Stormwater Bylaw regarding the application of CMC Design Build, Inc. for work related to raising and reconstructing a single-family dwelling at location 2 Bailey's Island, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information and access to the virtual meeting is available on the agenda posted on the town website. Okay.
I unmuted Jeff. Jeff, let me know if there's somebody else that you need.
Yeah, can you promote Adam Brodsky and Sean Papich? As well as Mark Moore. And Jackie McLennan as well, please.
goodness gracious, Jeff, you brought the whole crew.
Good evening, Chair Snow. It's Adam Brodsky. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
so you said-
Yeah.
Got ya.
Good. With your permission, I'd just like to make a quick introduction and then hand the presentation off to Jeff.
Okay.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Brodsky. I'm a local environmental and land use lawyer, and I represent Mark Moore and Jackie McLennan, who are the property owners. As you know, Jeff Hassett is our professional engineer, Sean Papich, our landscape architect, and Brad Holmes is our professional wetland scientist, but is not available this evening. Very briefly, this is a previously developed lot. We're proposing to raise and reconstruct the existing single-family dwelling, garage, and accessory structures. The relevant resource areas are buffer zone to salt marsh and buffer zone to coastal bank. And the property is located with the land subject to coastal storm flowage. AE elevation 14 is the FEMA flood zone. We've done our best to locate all of the new work outside of the 50-foot buffer zone to the salt marsh, which is, as you know, the most sensitive wetland resource area, except for a small portion of the proposed pool. And we are doing work within the 50-foot buffer zone to the top of coastal bank. And you're not going to like this, but this is not a typical coastal bank. This is fundamentally a ledge outcrop, and this does not contribute sediment to the coastal beach. Nevertheless, it is a coastal bank. As you're well aware, given this type of coastal bank, the relevant performance standard is to ensure that the stability of the coastal bank is not impaired. And as Jeff will explain to you, nothing that we're proposing is going to impair the stability of the coastal bank. We've prepared a robust mitigation for the project, including removing existing structures that are within your 50-foot buffer zone, including a portion of the garage, 2 sheds and a deck, and an extensive planting plan that's designed to enhance the buffer zone. So with that brief introduction, I'll ask Jeff to take you through the site plan and then hand it off to Sean. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Jeff Hassett here, the civil engineer with Morse Engineering. So this property is about 3 acres in size, and it's accessed from the south or the bottom of the page via a right of way from Wood Island Road. The property is developed with a single-family home that was built around 1956. There's also a detached garage, 2 sheds on the property, a gravel driveway, hardscape including a patio and walkways, landscaped areas, and the property is serviced by municipal water, as well as overhead utilities, and there's a relatively new septic system on the property. There are 3 wetland resource areas, one being the salt marsh that was flagged by Brad Holmes of Environmental Consulting and Restoration in August of last summer, or actually of 2022. Secondly, there's land subject to coastal storm flowage, which per the FEMA maps is elevation 14, and it's an AE zone. And thirdly, top of coastal bank, which is defined per the DEP policy 92-1. So the proposed work will be to raise and reconstruct the home. The new home will be constructed in the same general location, as well as raising and reconstructing the garage. The existing garage is partially in the 50-foot buffer. The new garage is both a garage and a pool house, so it is larger, but it's being moved significantly outside of the 50-foot buffer, so that being an improvement. And the driveway is being reconfigured as well. It will continue to be a pervious material, so no asphalt being proposed on this property. The project, it is a large project, but it has been designed in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, as well as the Scituate wetland regs. All of the proposed improvements are outside of the 50-foot buffer to the BVW, with the exception of one small corner of the pool, but that's immediately adjacent to the existing garage that's being removed. Also, and that area south of the detached garage and pool house, which is currently a garage and 2 sheds and lawn areas, is going to be planted as a meadow with plantings as well. So it's really that's that hatched green area at the bottom, which we're calling a mitigation area for that reason. That mitigation area is about 2,900 square feet. And then there's a smaller 410 square foot mitigation area to the north of the house. Also, the existing gravel driveway is well within the 50-foot buffer to the BVW, and the reconfigured is moved entirely outside of the 50-foot buffer. So again, being another improvement. As Adam had mentioned, this project will not alter or destabilize the bank in any way. And the new houses will be FEMA compliant. Well, the new house and the new structures. The existing house is not FEMA compliant. All of the driveway, as well as all of the patios and walkways, are specified in detail to be pervious, and all the roof runoff will go to dry wells. So we are anticipating continuing the hearing this evening. The project has gone out to peer review. The wetlands were reviewed by Art Allen of Ecotech, and I understand there are some additional flags that need to be located. So we have that on our agenda to do. And we're still waiting on the peer review of the stormwater as well. And with that, I will turn it over to the landscape architect, Sean Papich.
Thank you, Jeff. This is Sean Papich, landscape architect at 222 North Street in Hingham, Massachusetts. And we have a landscape plan that'll be a little bit more detailed than what you've got up here from Morse Engineering. I think if you hit that tab, it's a couple over to the left. And I'll make this brief. I know you guys had a long night.
Yeah.
See, it's much more fun looking at the green colors, isn't it?
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
definitely.
Okay. Well, what Jeff was describing, and we put a representative plant list on there. We will get down into more detail in terms of quantity, but the square footage, as he described, about 2,900 square feet in the area where we are removing the sheds and the bulk of the garage. They're there now. Some of that deck all with native plant material, as well as seeded in with native seed mix, warm season grass mix. The other piece, that's shaded kind of in that olive color just on the south side of the pool that you see there. On the north side, you see the 410 square feet up north of the proposed house and the existing house also, of course. And again, we would always have some amount of vegetation, woody vegetation, but also seeding in the native seed mix to get full coverage. Also establish some ferns, some native grasses and native forbs, either in pots, small pots, containers, or also plugs. We've gone to using those also. Jeff really described most of the features at this point. You also see quite a bit of vegetation up against the house. We're not really considering those to be mitigation plantings, but most properties that we're working on, we're also doing substantial amount of planting in and around the use areas, as well as right up against the house. But I would say the represent plant list that's there, take a look at that. That has all the usual suspects. And that pretty much covers it. I don't want to get too heavy into it.
All right.
We'll wait for some questions from you. Commentary.
What are all the white?
Thank you, Sean.
White areas are the, those little marks, those are, all those
Yeah,
are
those squares, the pillows, whatever.
tiny, the little tiny, those, there'll just be some, those are meant to be kind of light green, not so much white as lighter green. Those will just be some shrubs against the house.
No,
They're-
no, I'm talking, they're in the ledge, where the ledge is. Yeah, that,
Those are just numbers of the contours. So
thank you.
contours,
Okay,
all they are, just a graphic.
okay,
Even if
yep.
they're a little annoying, I appreciate that.
Okay,
Now
thank
I
you,
see
Sean.
the numbers.
You bet.
Thank you.
Do you have anybody else on your team that
Who
wants to
speak?
Chairman, so that is the presentation at this time, but we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Adam. Amy, you went out there with Art. Do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah. So, the team here, they just gave an overview of this property, the notice of intent for this site, which you have 2 peer reviewers you've got Ecotech, who we were out there last week with, and who provided a nice memo. There were quite a few flags missing, and revisions were made, so expect the lines to be changing. And also stormwater peer review is underway by a peer review engineer as well. So neither of those peer reviewers are on the call tonight, as those reviews are in process. So I didn't think they need to be on tonight, but so expect revisions to the plans. But as you can see, this is a fairly significant project, and it would it's important to start the information collecting process, and I think probably a site visit would be a pretty important milestone to undertake on this particular piece of property. And obviously we want to confirm the accuracy of the resource areas, and then just evaluate the project and figure out the best project you can get out there. Obviously there is a lovely project that can be put on this property, as it is a beautiful property. So look forward to seeing what you can put together out there. So that's about all I have to say.
Penny, you want to start this one?
No, I really would love to go out there, and it looks absolutely gorgeous what you're planning to do. But I'll be interested to see what Art has to say, and the stormwater review that's being done, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. No, I don't have any comments at the moment. It looks great, though.
Doug?
Well, it's pretty dense. I do have a couple plan questions, Jeff.
Sure.
Looks like you're leaving the existing septic field and re-piping to it for both from the pool house and that new house.
Yeah, that's correct. The leaching field is going to remain. I don't have the year in front of me that was installed, but it's relatively a new Title V system.
Okay.
There will be new tanks installed, but the field will remain, and it has adequate capacity.
Okay, so you don't have to build a new thing there.
No.
There's, I think well, there's some, let's see, on the south side of the house, the south facing side of the house, there's a bunch of rectangles that show up on your plan as well as Sean's, and they're kind of grayed out. Are those anything significant? Are those steps or
Stepping
structures
stones
or
in the grass.
Yeah,
that's
stepping
all?
vegetation.
Okay, nothing significant then.
There's a narrow part walkway you can see coming from the door over toward the pool area. We did keep most of these walkways as stepping stone pathways. Everything is permeable paving in terms of stonework, base prep. Any of our terrace work intended to be permeable.
Okay. And then there is, here we are, there is a coastal bank. I see that you have that drawn in blue. It looks like the same kind of thing. It goes along, shoots up the slope and then follows the top. So it's determined by slope. And that's kind of a dash dot blue line, right?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah, and you call it out limit of coastal bank per 92.1. Okay. Yeah, I don't think, obviously there's a lot of ledge, looks like. So, it seems like stormwater will be a bit of a challenge, but I would guess that you'll figure that out.
One thing
I'm good.
I would note is with respect to the ledge is that they're not doing a full basement or even a full crawl space there. It's really a minimal either slab or crawl space too. So there won't be a lot of ledge removal in the area of the foundation.
Oh, okay. That's probably wise. Yeah, I'm good for now.
Okay. Richard?
I don't think I have any questions now, especially since we're going to have to continue it anyway, and the peer reviews and the flags are going to be added. So I might have questions later, but right now I don't.
Be good if any of you
Go out there.
as we finish, keep talking about just if you have any direction you want to give the applicant.
Now.
Yeah, but obviously there's going to be more to this, and seeing it might help.
Yeah, I'll go up.
Okay. Brendan?
Yeah, so yeah, like everyone else, this is, I guess, a little bit subject to change. But I'm glad to see sheds and garage moving out of the 50. Not a fan of seeing the pool go in the 50. Glad the driveway is moving out of the 50 as well. It was just a question on like that. What's going in its place? I saw a few trees, was it? Is there lawn underneath that or?
Yes, there is intended to be lawn areas going in underneath the some of those existing trees, correct?
Okay, so you're
Where
gonna put
it's
lawn areas
existing
in the
driveway.
50.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess then as of, I guess, you know what, I'm going to leave it at that. I just, glad to see things come out of the 50 and, yeah, and the pool though is
Well, it's just that corner.
Very tiny. It's about a couple of handful of square feet that is with 3,400 or about 3,300 square foot of mitigation plantings. I think the gentleman on the hearing before us was starting to squirm about a 6 foot wide planting strip someplace. Kind of curious to that. So
That's
all
all
I'm
for
saying
now.
is we're
I'm
pretty
just-
dense with our plantings. We're pretty dense with our plantings on all of our projects, frankly.
That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Take it, everybody?
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
Can I ask one more question? Is there an observed buffer zone to a coastal bank? Is that a resource area that has a buffer zone associated with it?
Yes,
So that 50-foot buffer zone then would had to be. Does that mean that has to be revised to go 50 feet outside the from the coastal bank? Do you know what do you follow me?
yep.
Mr. Aber, do you want us to show on the plan the 50-foot buffer to the coastal bank in addition to the?
That's a question. It's not really a statement.
Yes, sir.
Adam, I'm just like, is that,
Well,
I believe, isn't it being shown there?
yeah, it is.
Well,
Limit
the
of coastal bank.
the coastal bank is being shown, but what Doug was asking is there a buffer to the coastal bank?
Yeah,
They're
it
down at
says
the
down
bottom. It
below.
says 50-foot coastal bank buffer. There's a line that goes through
ah,
the house and everything.
that purple one?
Yeah,
Couldn't
that
see it.
purple one. Yeah.
Got you.
I
Okay,
didn't ask
thank you.
about that.
I looked the thick red one, but not that
Yeah.
one. So most of that house then is inside that 50-foot
Yes.
coastal bank.
Yeah, in some cases, that coastal bank buffer is gonna be up gradient of the salt marsh. So that's gonna be more conservative, you know?
Yeah, it certainly is. Yeah.
How about anybody in the audience? Do we have anyone that would like to speak to this? We need your name and address, please.
There's two, I have two hands up. Joanne Wickoff, I'm gonna call on first.
Okay.
Joanne?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yep.
can.
Joanne Wyckoff, 154 Turner Road. I'm here as a liaison from the Water Resources Commission. And I'm just curious, I think I remembered you were saying you've got a dry well system, but I'm wondering if you've got any kind of water catchment system for watering all your foliage and plants.
No, we're not specifying any collection system for water to be reused. The dry wells for the roof runoff are intended to, promote recharge.
Right.
But that's certainly something we can look into before the next submittal.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a good point.
Okay, now Buckner Creel.
I think you might be muted on your end.
And I was, thank you. My name is Buckner Creel. I'm the representing Kathleen Creel, the owner of Zero Bailey's Island, a butter. She expresses her apologies for not being able to attend this evening and asked me to attend in her stead. I'm her father. The family has been associated with this property for a very long time. I think it was actually built in 1953, but I could be wrong. The trees are a critical asset on this particular piece of a beautiful part of the world. And I think it's part of the things that makes it beautiful. Notice that there's going to be a significant amount of fill, and a lot of a number of trees will be torn down. And Kathleen asks if it's possible to save as many of those trees as possible. She thinks it's what makes that place a special part of the world. I've had a question when looking at the plans. I note that in the notes on the site plan, it says that there is zero impact of impervious ledge. And I found that curious, having looked at that ledge for 30 some years and worked around it and trimmed and everything else. So there are two significant ledge outcroppings, one sort of to the south and west of the house, and then immediately adjacent to the old garage. The septic system wasn't, we installed a new septic system and oversized it deliberately. And may not be clear, but the garage contained an accessory apartment. And so the system of pumping from two locations was just something that would be carried on. So it shouldn't be problematic for the applicant, I would think. Finally, just curious, I note that we note that the height of the structure is shown as being 36 feet. From what point is that measured? I mean, from where do you start with the 36 feet? Is it the slab, that's a slab, the top of slab, or finished floor height, or what?
Can one of you, either Jeff or Sean?
Yeah, I can respond to those comments. So the height is measured from the average grade, and that calculation will be shown on the architectural plan with the building permit submittal. It's the maximum height is 35 feet. So on our plan, we simply specify, it will be less than 35 feet. As far as ledge, there is approximately 1,900 square feet of ledge that will then be that will no longer be ledge. It'll either be a portion of the house foundation or removed and replaced with landscaping above it. That is primarily the area to the southwest of the house. And then the detached garage is positioned just outside of that large ledge outcrop that you're referring to. And then the intent is to save as many trees as possible here. There will be a 50-foot buffer to the BBW that will remain vegetated and even enhanced in areas where currently there aren't any trees. So that 50-foot buffer essentially remains untouched. The majority of the work is within areas that are existing lawn and landscaped and developed.
And the intent is to definitely give the feeling of a very natural feeling landscape. So I know you see some squareness to the auto court and some of the walkways, but the intent is to make this feel as native as possible. Certainly there's reduction even in some of the lawn areas. I think all that area around inside the 50 where the sheds are and that existing garage, there's quite a bit of lawn in that area, and that's all being turned into mitigation, native plantings, and seed mix. So the intent is to make it as natural feeling as possible. It's really the design intent.
Yeah, I think when you go out there and take a look with your site walk, you'll see the areas of significantly tall oak trees that are going to probably be sacrificed for this project, but that's the way it is. When Parker Schofield bought this property from Jesse Cox, who lived in the Oaks on the other side of the Cohasset Harbor, she said, "Parker, I'll let you build a house as long as I can't see it from my house." And so that was the genesis of the large amount of plantings, the single, the spread out design, and the single story height was to meet her requirements, and it served his family and my mother-in-law's family, my wife's family, for a significant number of years. But this is time to do something different, and we appreciate the sensitivity that the team is taking towards conserving what we have always considered to be a beautiful landscape. Thank you very much for allowing me to talk.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else on for this evening?
Saying none.
Is there anything else the commission members?
Well, you haven't weighed in, Frank.
Yeah, I'm just trying to check and make sure. So I think Mr. Creel brought up a good point. It would be helpful on the site visit if maybe you could mark the trees that are coming down especially the larger ones. Smaller things we don't really need to know, but it would be helpful to know the larger trees that are going to get removed. And then, as a couple of the members pointed out, it is a pretty sensitive area. It's obvious that you've got some quality folks involved here trying to do a good job, but it is certainly a very, very sensitive spot, and it's a pretty ambitious project with more buildings and expansion. So it certainly warrants a fair amount of mitigation and just sort of review by the commission. It's about all I can add tonight.
So how far out do we want to go, Frank, with this?
I guess that the applicant would probably be better.
Jeff?
So Chairman, so it's Adam Brodsky. Do we have any sense when we're going to get the peer reports back?
Amy?
Well, not by the next meeting, I would say. I mean, because we want, there to be a round of reviews back and forth. So, I mean, I would even say to go to the second January meeting, to tell you the truth.
What Adam's question was, when did they think they could expect to get the reports back to them?
Well, I'm hoping that this, within the next week or so, they'll get the stormwater report. So
they are, do you have at Allen's? Is that Allen?
They already have the comments from the resource areas.
Okay.
So we're waiting for revised plans on that, and the stormwater comments, I'm hoping to get back, either this week or next.
Who's doing that?
It's Merrill Engineering.
Okay. All right. So with that, Adam, and then an opportunity to review things, what do you think about the second meeting in January?
22nd.
I'll defer to Jeff. Do you wish to set a date for a site visit for the commission?
I was thinking the same thing, yeah, site visit. And do we have a date of that second hearing in January yet?
I think it's the 20th.
22nd.
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 Yeah, I think that.
Whoa. 29th, I'm told.
29, okay.
29th? Okay.
But it might be good to get the site visit done ASAP before snow hits the ground.
Is it going to snow?
Not this year.
It's no Thursday.
So, yeah, that wouldn't be a bad idea.
I mean, let's try to do that before Christmas.
Yes.
Maybe the week of the 11th.
Sounds good.
All right, we'll try to get a consensus from commission members, see who can go, and see if we can't set it up for that week. That sound good? And then we'll continue this to the 22nd?
Well, Chairs.
29th, sorry.
Chairman Snow, the 29th is an awfully long way from now. Would it be possible to get on the prior meeting in January? If we're not prepared, we'll obviously ask for a continuance.
So the
It's
earlier
almost
meeting,
2 months, almost 2 months away.
so the earlier meeting is the 8th. What have we got on for the 8th, Jen? We already have 6 notices of intent for the 8th. New ones. Not
That's
to
heavy,
mention,
Frank.
what's that?
That would be heavy with this. I think we should stick with the 29th.
There's just an awful lot of filings.
Yeah.
Penny, if we promise to make the plan in even nicer color, would that help? Yes, a little earlier.
Um,
I'm not deciding.
Well,
Somebody tell me what to do here.
no, I mean, I get the point. It's
Yeah, I
quite a-
do too, but it's just January's kind of a screwball month. I mean,
well,
I see what they're saying.
December doesn't.
No,
it's
December
easier.
too. But you have,
So it's Adam again. Any chance that you might have another meeting in January, given your workload?
Well, Martin Luther King Day is the 15th, so that knocks
yeah.
that Monday out.
Oh, that's what it is. Wow.
And we're not going to have a New Year's Day is the 1st. So, um,
Right, and then I think we have another meeting. I bet we meet the very next February Monday.
The 5th. Yeah,
Yeah,
February.
yeah. So we get right back on track in February.
is there a reason we're not meeting the 22nd instead of the 29th? Okay.
Is
Yep.
there a reason? We're not hearing it.
But Jen was just saying in terms of trying to spread things out a little bit.
Oh.
I'm just you know, if there's things that pop up, it would be good to be able to get them on so that they have time to, in case we continue it again. There's just going to be a lot to cover on this, Adam, when we have that information.
No, I understand your time constraints. I'm trying to obviously be respectful of that and also move the project forward for the clients.
Sure.
Well, somebody make a decision here.
I think we have to stay with the 29th.
Frank, you're muted if you're talking.
I was talking to Jen for a minute, just looking at the calendar, but she's showing me how much they already have on the 8th.
So we gotta go to the, that's too bad we're not meeting the 22nd. Cause would have been perfect.
Well, nothing's perfect, but
Well, compared to,
so Adam, I'm just trying to think of what other ways to expedite this a little bit. If we get things from the consultants, you'll have time to review those and get back and forth with
Yes, it's our intention to resolve all of the outstanding peer review comments prior to the next hearing.
right. And then we get a site visit. The only other proposal that I'd make is that we continue it to the 8th with the agreement that if we're jammed, we're gonna just ask that we continue it again to the 29th. Would be the only thing that I could offer. If it's things seem like they're gonna lighten up, or multiple of those ones that just came in and continued, which happens, but we could hit the 8th and decide that we just have too much on the agenda to give this its proper review, and then we would just continue it.
Again, we'll take any consideration that the commission can offer to us.
Does that make sense to anybody else?
Yeah, that's okay. I mean,
We continue it to the 8th, but if we've got a whole load of stuff when we open on the 8th, we're just going to continue it to the 29th.
I
That
make a
way, the other
motion.
thing that could happen is if we decide that we do need some additional meeting or something with that, we could continue it to the 22nd or something. I don't know.
That's
Okay.
certainly acceptable to the applicants.
I make a motion, we tentatively continue.
Well, we're going to
Billy.
continue it. We're definitely going to continue it to the 8th. The thing was
Well,
that
you just said we might kick them out.
we would have to
Okay.
open it regardless, or
All right, fine. I make a
then-
motion, we continue to January 8th to Bailey's Island.
And Chairman Starts, Adam Brodsky, can we agree upon a date for the site visit before you continue us, please?
we're gonna get a consensus from commission members, and we're shooting for the week of the 11th, December 11th.
So that's next week.
Yep. Well, why don't we say we're gonna try for either the week of the 11th or the 18th, and Jen can get out to members and we'll get a consensus and see if that jives with your schedules, Adam.
Great, thank you. That's what I was getting. If you can give us several dates and times that work, because we've got a busy team.
Sure. Thank you. Okay, so I have a motion from Penny. A second
Second that, Brendan.
from Brendan. All in favor, Richard,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
and Frank, yes. Okay,
Thank you very much. Good night. And
good night.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
294 Central Ave. This was continued from 10/23. And we have someone from Morse, maybe.
Jeff Hassett.
All right, thank you again.
Hey, Jeff.
Hello. So Jeff Hassett here again. So yeah, as you noted, this was a continued public hearing for a notice of intent to elevate a house at 294 Central Ave in Humrock. Since the last meeting, the DEP file number has been issued. We submitted structural plans, which were done by Rivermore Engineering, and the house is going to be removed from the concrete foundation and elevated up about 3.5 feet higher on timber piles. And we also did additional research on the seawall, and we've provided some photos along the left-hand side of the page. If you can zoom in, we'll start with photos 1 and 2. They show the subject property in the middle, the gray house, and then the abutting properties on either side. And then if you scroll down to photo 3, photo 3 shows the existing seawall on the seaward side of the property with a concrete cap on top. And then that's 294, the taller house in the middle of the photograph. Going down to the next photograph, photograph number 4. That's again the subject property. You can see it's on a concrete foundation with a seawall with a concrete on top of the seawall in front of it. So that seawall and that method of construction is consistent for the 8 properties in a row there. And we were looking into what we're specifying is for that concrete foundation wall around the house to be removed, but it's not feasible to remove the portion that on the seaward side because it's basically part of that seawall. That seawall would collapse if you remove that front portion of the wall. So what will happen is the house will be elevated. That portion of the wall will remain. It will not hold up the house in any way. The house is going to be about a couple feet higher than that. The house will be totally held up by the timber piles. Figure 5, the next one down, is the house immediately next door. If you're looking at the property, it's the house from the street. It's the house to the right. And they were recently elevated in the same fashion. If you look closely at that seawall, that's the old foundation wall that remained holding up that seawall. And then lastly, it was brought up by the property owner that on the seaward side of that seawall, the footing is beginning to show. Basically, the boulders have been pulled away from the wall. So we're specifying those boulders to be replaced and then additional boulders to be supplemented in that area. And we've called that out on the plan and also detailed it with that section view to the right of the photos. So we do feel that this project can be approved. Again, it's the same method of construction as the property immediately adjacent. And it should be a big improvement, as that house will now be elevated in accordance with current FEMA regulations. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Amy?
Yeah, so, okay, so we've had this, and this is our second time that we've had this. It was continued. And this is our revised plan. They want to also, fix the seawall too, as well as go up. We didn't have DEP comments or a number before. Now we do have a number with comments that say, it appears that retaining a portion of the existing foundation and adding boulders as proposed would not meet the performance standards for coastal dune 310 CMR 10.28 and barrier beach 310 CMR 10.29. So we need to consider those comments while conditioning a project here. That's all I can say. So I think that repair of the revetment as proposed, but not adding to or building out would be okay. And elevating is going to be an improvement, but yeah, it's a tough spot. So that's about all I have to say.
Richard, do you want to?
Yeah. It is a tough spot. Again, we come back to questions of consistency. I understand what Amy's saying completely. I don't know if you remember, but about 4 or 5 years ago, we had a similar thing a little further to the south, where the whole thing was about adding boulders in front of the wall, which was less substantial at that point than this is. And we ended up, after many discussions, going along with it. We were very specific about the size of what was brought in, but I remember it being approved. And you're up against a rock and a hard place. Either the wall goes away and then you've got many more issues, or you try to support it a little more so that maybe you don't have more issues. The house itself, I have no issues with it. It's a total improvement as far as I can see. But again, you're up against consistency issues here, and not meeting the specifications maybe by rule maybe isn't helping the situation. And I'm probably not helping by rambling on like this, but I think they got to be allowed to do something to shore up the wall a little bit. And it doesn't seem to me to be all that much, or else it's going to get worse. The rest of it, I don't have any particular problems with. I think it'll be a dramatic improvement. I know the house pretty well.
Okay. Penny?
You're not on, Penny.
When we go to
Okay,
someone.
now I'm on. I don't know if you
Yeah.
want to hear this or not, but I disagree with DEP. The foundation wall that's holding up the patio. I mean, you've got a 2-foot opening so the water can flow through. All right, if it gets up across the patio, it's going to flow through. So you're not stopping it. All you're doing is holding that patio up. I just don't understand that. If there was if it was blocking the water, I'd understand, but I don't see it blocking the water.
In fact, it's blocking the water more now than it would be.
Yes, exactly. That this way you have that couple of feet, it's gonna flow and it's gonna go. And the out front, I mean, we have the problem down Lighthouse Point, the undermining of the seawall, it's literally crumbling down there. If you have to put these boulders in front of these seawalls at this point in time in order to protect them. I don't agree with DEP at all on this one. You've got to protect the front of that seawall or it's gonna go. That's my opinion. Otherwise, I think it's a great project. I don't have a problem with what they're proposing to do. I'll be quiet, Frank.
That's fine. Doug?
Yeah, I'm just wondering what if DEP's, so Amy said DEP said that does not conform, removing that wall and putting the boulders in there for reinforcement? Is it leaving the wall? Is it the boulders? Like what I'm just trying to figure out what the alternative
Well,
is.
so DEP did not see this version of the plan. The version that DEP reviewed was the version that showed like the first version that you guys reviewed, which showed that they were going to keep the walls, you know, they were going to put the house on piles, but then keep walls inside the house, you know, and so the comments were that, you know, those walls should come down because walls are going to, you know, direct flows of storm
Sure.
water. So when we
Okay,
also
so
said those walls are going to go, but so now this is, but our wall and, you know, the seawall, the revetment structure, which actually does, you know, connect to other walls along the seawall, that they're rolling that into part of the project too, also needs, you know, it's significantly damaged and it also needs to be repaired. So they're hoping to do those repairs under this notice too. So so I don't know. I mean, like, I think the comments really apply to the wall that was in the interior portion of the house.
Gotcha.
So to the extent that the revetment can be repaired internally, but not beefed up, I think that can happen.
Okay. That does make more sense. Okay, I got you. So that helps clarify it. Thank you.
If I could clarify that.
Is there any, well, is there any further review on the revetment repair? I mean, or are we the sole administrators of that?
Well, so
With
this revised plan should also be going to the state, but since the NOI, the file number has already been issued by the state, they may or may not actually, you know, offer additional comments since it's already been, you know, they've already given it their once over. It's not that unless we bring it to their attention, they're not likely to pipe in on this again.
Okay. Okay, thanks. That clears it up for me, I think. Jeff, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I wanted to kind of reiterate that that front concrete wall will no longer be connected to the house. There will be timber piles immediately behind it. So water can pass between the patio and the house underneath it.
Right.
And then the boulders that are specified to be put on the seaward side of the wall, you know, there were boulders there in the past. You can see they've been shifted in the photograph. They're not where they should be. So it's not kind of a new stack boulders, just kind of putting them back where they were and supplementing them as some of them have been washed away.
Yeah, it seems like a reasonable fix to me.
Sure does.
So
Brendan?
Yeah, I don't have any new comments or questions. It seems good to me.
Frank,
Yes.
let me ask just this. On the repair of the in front of the wall, do you have, and I can see it's cobble and gravel to reinforce and all that. Do you have the specific dimensions of what's proposed or quantities of what's proposed? I believe that's what we did ask for in the past on a couple of things that have been done in Humrock.
Yeah, so yeah, we're calling out existing boulders to be restacked and supplemented with additional 2 foot to 4 foot granite stone and kink. And then we're calling it out at a 2-to-1 slope, about halfway up the wall.
So really, that's not changing. If I'm remembering it right, and I was down there last week, that's not really changing the height or the slope significantly at all. Am I correct?
No, the intent is to bring it back to the way the way it was.
Okay. Yeah, I was just down there on the beach side, so I do remember seeing that. So, okay, to answer my question, stick with what I said. I think it's so fine, perfect, personally. As a
Okay.
repair.
Do we have it? I got to everybody, right? Do we have anybody in the audience for this one?
Saying none.
So Amy, I know that some of this runs contrary to things being built along Humrock Beach. So that in this case, Jeff, the patio is proposed to stay, right?
Correct.
As opposed to any kind of a wooden deck, and whatever they have for that seawall, they're keeping, and you're just trying to protect the toe of that.
That's correct.
And then you're fortifying the backside of the existing concrete wall because you're cutting away the side.
Yes, exactly.
I remember, Penny, Richard, way down the other end, we allowed someone to do something like that. It got into quite a, I don't even know if we still got it resolved, right?
I was thinking,
I can
I was
think of 2 or
remembering
3
that.
situations.
Yeah.
One way down south, almost to the Marshfield end, not quite that far, and then a couple others south of this particular location, but not far south, still north of the middle part of the, still on the north end. Yeah.
Right. So Amy, can we condition this thing this way? What your read on this?
I think so.
Okay. All right. Oh, I don't have anything else. We asked for anybody in the audience, right?
No.
Yeah.
So
Make a
there was-
motion.
Sure.
I make a motion to close.
I'll second it.
Second by Richard, all in favor. Doug,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
and Frank, yes. Great, thank you. 72 Glades Road.
And 9.
And who do we have? This is Jeff again.
Yeah, I'm here again for this one.
So what were we opened this, there was some discussion.
Yeah, so it's a continued public hearing and we are basically just continued it, waiting for Board of Health approval. And also revised plan just for Board of Health approval, and also just to make sure that any other clarifications were made to size of the house.
Okay.
Yeah, because we got that letter.
Yeah.
Is this house bigger?
Well, so you can see the hatched area inside
Yeah.
the proposed, that's the original house. So it's slightly bigger house. And there is a enclosed deck. They did move the septic back on the dune,
Right.
and it does have Board of Health approval. So you guys
Okay.
could close this.
Can you clarify that, is there a roof over the deck?
There is a roof over the deck. It's a 2-story deck. So it's open air on the walls, but it does have a roof over it.
And what did we condition with the other ones? Did we ask them to remove that roof? Or did they or didn't they? I can't remember.
No, but what we did though is we said that you can't come back and ask for more.
Right.
So what you did is on the square size of the footage of the houses that you conditioned on these other houses was you're at your max.
So we did scale back the size of the deck from the first hearing on this. That front deck right now extends 8 feet from the face of the house, and originally it was 15 feet. So we've scaled that back. We also pulled the septic closer to the road, getting it entirely out of the velocity zone.
Yep.
And we submitted structural drawings. And then on this plan, the areas shown in blue are the areas where the proposed house is smaller in footprint, and then the red are in the areas where it's getting larger. So the deck is a little bit larger in the front on the ocean side, but almost half the size of what we originally proposed. A lot of that area is a step.
Okay.
So then we have a table. It's a slight increase of about 76 square feet of coverage.
Okay. All right. Who wants to go first? Richard?
I appreciate the colors. First of all, that's very helpful to me, and also that there has been a scale back. And really, the one thing that we really asked for was the move back on the septic, and they complied with that. So I'm really pretty happy with the adjustments.
Okay. Doug?
Yeah, I don't really have a problem with the project. I'm glad you asked about the consistency. That's my only question. This is, I don't know, we whatever, this is the 5th house right there in this area. And I guess, I be honest, I'm a little forgetful on what we required other people to do. So, but I don't know. I look at this project, it's not a massive increase or anything like that. I really don't have a problem with it.
I think on the other houses. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm that's my concern, is like making sure that they're
He seemed
we're
upset
being
in
as
that letter.
consistent as possible, I guess.
I think in almost all these houses got bigger. They went up higher and whatever. We were looking to keep them back from the ocean, some from the original applications. And I think that they did that. And so we're kind of where we are with these. I think all of them have made some concessions to avoid encroaching on other areas. Some of them are even closer to the ocean. So I think it depends. Some of them depend on where they're located.
Yeah. So I think I'm good with it.
Okay. Penny?
Yeah, I was just concerned when I saw the letter today, and I'm there, I want them all of them that had the fire to be treated equally. Am I wrong, Amy, or is he just misunderstanding?
you know what, I'm not sure what perspective he's looking at, because there's like looking at it from an architectural perspective. We don't have the architecturals on these
No.
houses. So what they look like from a height perspective might be different from what they look like on a box, on a plan. You know what I'm saying?
He seemed to be saying that these were much bigger and he had to stay in the same footprint.
Right, well, at the end of the day, this is a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath house, so like I don't see how this is much bigger. It looks like it's like Doug said, it's like a pretty modest increase.
Third story deck, yeah. I just, don't want this to come back and bite us, because he seemed very upset in that letter. I don't know if you read it, Frank.
Yeah, I did, and I tried to look real quickly at the other plans to just see what we did with some others, and then where their location was with regards to the beach.
Okay, well, I'm happy with what we have
Okay.
here, so.
Who have I? Brendan.
Thank you. So my question, I guess, is structural coverage. Kind of is is that purple, or are we calling it blue?
Blue.
Blue. Okay. Blue. That's actually, is that house or deck?
The blue, I think, is where structure was before that was removed.
That's correct.
But what? But I guess this
deck
question is,
structure, though.
was it a deck or was it? a
Yeah, it's
building?
just that we're trading deck for house here. Is that kind of what I'm looking at?
It is partially, but it's a multi-story deck.
Okay. Just wanted to be clear on that, I guess. And then as far as, with all of these houses, it's been the same story. They're not getting any smaller. I don't think anyone has kept it in the same size. Unfortunately, everything's getting bigger.
And not your beach cottage.
No, certainly not. And wherever possible, growth was pushed. I think I guess I calculated one structure being like 38% larger. Not this particular one, but footprint size. So what I'm not pleased about that, but I guess this is what it is, and this is what we're voting on here.
Okay.
So we have anybody in the audience?
Yes, you do.
Jen. Please need name and address, please.
Near.
Hi. Yes, hi, good evening, guys.
Good evening.
Near Drury, 74 Glades Road. I'm the next door neighbor of 72. So
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm hearing the conversation going around between everybody, and it seems like everybody forgot what I had to go through to get my approval. And I will remind everybody. So we came in with the intent to enlarge the footprint. And it wasn't by a lot. It was maybe 7 or 8% of what we tried to build. And we went through really hard time, and everybody was opposing my project and made me and enforced me to stay within the same footprint. And we actually had to cut down 4% smaller than what the footprint was in one of the houses. And then on the other two houses, we were 2% smaller on the footprint. And I'm hearing this is not the same case. I really, really feel that the regulation should be consistent with everyone. I don't understand why I had to go smaller while they going bigger. I didn't hear anybody's asking for all of the things that I was asked to do. I was asked to provide a pile relation, how many piles we had before, and how many piles are we going to use for the new construction. We were asked to see what the pile area was, and I didn't hear anybody's asking for the pile area. We were asked to see what is the building coverage in square foot, old and new, and I didn't hear anybody was asking for that. So why was I treated differently? That's all I'm trying to understand here. And I really think that if I stayed within the same footprint or went smaller, I don't see why they should be allowed to go bigger. I wanted to go bigger as well, and nobody was in favor to it. Another issue that I have is with the stairs on the driveway side. I see that they added stairs. It's in the pink. And this wasn't part of the zoning. And the only issue that I have with the stairs is it's going to prevent them to park a car over there. And they have an easement to get into the house through my property. And if they build the stairs the way they're going to build, the car is going to overhang into my easement. And there's no way to park a car. It used to be about 15 or 16 feet. And now it's shrunk by maybe 3 or 4 feet because of the stairs. So yeah, I'm definitely not happy.
Okay. And unfortunately, I don't have the information on on your projects tonight, and we've had a lot of hearings since then, so it's hard for me to look at all of them there. With you've obviously lived there and have a better handle on
No,
what's there. So I just don't have all that information in front of me.
Okay, but can we get some information? Do we know how many piles were in the ground and how many piles they're going to use? Can we get lot coverage, old and new? Can we get a pile area to see where all the piles are going to be? What's that coverage like? And can we stay within the same footprint that I had to follow? I mean, I think regulation consistency is the key. Why was
what I just said to you was, it's hard for me to compare this because I don't have all those other things in front of me right this minute. And I know there were different circumstances. I understand what you're saying, and if we can certainly get more information on this project.
I just don't see how could you allow somebody to go bigger while making me stay smaller.
Again,
I'm not, that's, well,
go ahead, Dick.
well, that's just not the way I'm remembering.
No.
I mean, I'm looking at the old plans, all the houses did get bigger. Not substantially.
Lot coverage. We went 4% smaller. Oh yeah, 4% smaller on my lot coverage. They did not get bigger. We went smaller. My lot coverage is 4% smaller than what it was. And that was and the intent was to make you guys happy. So I went smaller than what I had, because nobody was happy with me trying to increase, and it wasn't by much again. So we went smaller. All my lot coverage on all my houses are smaller than what they were. And if you look at the report that Greg Morse provided, and I have it in front of me. 74B was 1,288 square feet. We went down to 1,236 square feet on the lot coverage. It's 4% reduction. On my 74 house, 2% reduction, between 74 and 74C. So all of my houses on the lot coverage, on the footprint, are smaller than what they were.
If I could interject here, I had asked the question on 74C of Greg. on the previous footprint with the existing footprint. And the
Mhm.
numbers I was given at the time was the original was 275 square foot, and the current is 380, which is a 38% increase.
No, no,
Square
no, let me, let me correct you, okay?
This
The-
is
the-
this is what I was given.
No, no, but so I'm gonna correct you. So
I'm only
74,
telling you what I was given.
no, no,
Was I
I,
given the wrong information?
no, no, you were not given the wrong information.
Oh, okay.
You do have the right information, but 74 was 1920 square feet lot coverage, went down to 1790. And 74C was 285, went up to 378. Combined, it's a reduction of 2%.
I
So
was only speaking to 74C. Was
it's
the
on
one
the
I had
same.
asked about.
Yeah, no, 74C and 74 are on the same property, and it's a reduction of 2% from what it was. So 74 and 74C, reduction of 2%, 74B, reduction of 4%. That's what we had to go through. So all of my houses got reduction by either 2 or 4%. And everyone was really pushing on the lot coverage. So yes, sure, I wanted to build something bigger, foot coverage, but I was not able to.
Okay. Well, just trying to think what our options are for this evening. Is there addition? Go ahead.
So this house that we are proposing, it's only a footprint of 30 by 44, and with a deck extending off the front an additional 8 feet instead of 15 feet. It is a slight reduction. We do have that structural coverage table on the top. With that additional, 76 square feet of coverage, to me, it's somewhat de minimis, and it's not going to have any adverse impact on the ability of the coastal dune to function. And the house will be elevated higher than the existing house in FEMA compliance.
What's the increase in square footage, the percentage increase, Jeff?
I only have it as the square footage increase of 76 square feet. I don't actually know the existing and proposed, total square footages.
So you're saying that this house is increasing 76 square feet
Of coverage, of structure coverage.
structure cover?
Yeah, so the
Lot
blue
cover.
area that's being eliminated from structure coverage is subtracting 181 square feet. And that area shown.
I mean, this is where it gets to be a little bit of smoke and mirrors with some of the others as well. Like what's a deck, what's a and I wasn't prepared to address all of these tonight. So you're saying lot coverage from what existed before to what's there, what you're proposing is an addition of 76 square feet.
That's correct.
And we have a compliant septic system that's now placed on the property.
Correct.
Okay.
It's approved by ZBA. It's approved by Board of Health.
Did we allow roofs to be placed on those other properties, Mr. Nearest property? Do we have roofs over those decks, or do we say no to the roofs?
I'm not aware. I wasn't involved in those projects.
Yes, you did.
I'm sorry, say that. What?
Yes.
Yes, what?
Yes, you did allow roofs. Yes.
Okay.
Covered porches, yeah.
Okay. And then what we said is they can't be further enclosed.
Correct.
Okay. And I'm just trying to remember. So there was reconfiguration of the other properties. One house, Brendan, I think to your recollection, got substantially larger. Is that?
I was just looking at the plans and, again, this is, how much of this is smoke and mirrors by structural coverage and lot coverage. And by looking on the other properties, the house does seem in all these cases to get larger. It takes over the area of the decks. I think in the case of 74B and C, some decks had to be eliminated because they were joined together also, which is maybe an issue.
Okay.
But in all cases, the actual house itself has gotten larger.
Right. Well, and then when they went up higher, multi-stories,
Yeah, higher multi-stories, which is, I try not to concern
that's
myself.
not in our jurisdiction, but
But width, height, like width and
Okay.
footprint of the actual home has gotten bigger.
Right.
Which is something that in all of these cases I am opposed to.
Right.
But
Right, and while I think it's nice to duly note that, we need to really focus on the interest of the act here and to move this along.
Mhm.
If we can.
Okay. Does anybody else from the commission have anything they want to add? Near, do you want to speak again? Do you want to unmute him?
If it's something of relevance that hasn't been already brought up previously.
I think you're unmuted.
All right, thank you.
Mayor, only if you haven't already said this.
Amy, I understand. I do understand. I mean, like I said, the only thing I think it's very important, it's that the regulation consistency. I think everybody should follow the same type of rules. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Oh, I do think that all of these hearings would try to accommodate folks as best we can and to work with the circumstances of each property. I think Brendan's points are well made that all of these properties have expanded. And we could do all kinds of calculations to see which one expanded in which direction. I think the only thing that came up on this that concerns me, Jeff, was were those stairs at the rear of the property always in that location, the previous application?
No, and it would not affect the ZBA applications because the setback is measured to the structure, not the steps. But we were talking that we would have to we do intend to mirror those steps to make them come down the other direction, so the intent is the landing on the left-hand side and the steps going down to the right. We would mirror that, put the landing on the right side, with the steps going to the left. That way, it won't impact the ability to get into the garage.
Got it.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
The so the steps on the bottom of the page, closer to Glades Road. You can see on the left-hand side is the landing, the 4x4 landing, and then they head down to the right.
Okay.
Well, where they land is where the garage door is. So we discussed mirroring those, and I could submit a revised plan as a condition showing that the size of the steps will be exactly the same. They'll just be shifted to the left a couple feet and mirrored to not interfere with that garage door.
Gotcha. And is that septic system something? Oh, that's all H20, so they can drive over it.
Yeah, the intent is to park on top of that.
Okay. All right.
Well, Jeff, these houses in the velocity zone on the beach and coastal dune are conditioned with no lattice.
Okay.
Okay, that's the way we've been conditioning these houses.
Okay, that's good to know.
It's just garbage
All right.
on the beach.
Anything else?
No.
I have a motion.
I make a motion to close.
To have a second.
I'll second that.
That was Doug.
Yes.
All in favor, Richard,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
and Frank, yes. Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Let's see, 26 Carroll Circle. On,
Frank?
yes,
I'm sorry. I just realized the time.
I think we got enough people to vote.
Okay, I got another 20 minutes. Just didn't
All
want
right.
to get too deep.
Well, that's a good incentive,
That's a
Brendan.
good incentive. Yes.
Well, to be thorough.
I got I got a clock right in front of me, and I've been watching it for the last hour. On December 4th, 2023, during the 6 p.m. meeting, the Scituate Conservation Commission will act on the request of Megan and Robert Quinn for a determination of applicability of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate Wetlands bylaws for activities related to septic repair at a single-family dwelling at location 26 Carroll Circle, Scituate, Mass. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the meeting will be available on the agenda posted on the town website. And we have someone from Morse Engineering.
All right, thank you, Greg.
How'd you get all the late night ones, Joe?
Greg doesn't have the night off, don't worry.
All right.
Just double book tonight.
Okay.
So this is a filing for a septic repair at 26 Cairo Circle. The property owners are Megan and Robert Quinn, and this property is about 29,000 square feet in size. It's developed with a 4-bedroom single-family home, and it has a failed septic system. We have the wetlands flagged. They are off-site, and it's a BVW flagged by John Zimmer in November. The wetland is in blue, the 50-foot buffer is in red, and the 100-foot buffer is in green. The new system is made up of a 1,500-gallon septic tank. It can flow by gravity to a distribution box and a Presby leaching field. The system itself is 89.1 feet to the BVW. The limit of work is 70 feet to the BVW, and the erosion control barrier is at the limit of work. There's no increase in flow. This location allows the system to flow by gravity without a pronounced mound. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard?
I mean, I'm hazy after being up since 5 this morning. It's notably within the 100 or halfway within the 100. Is that something we can deal with?
Yes.
Yeah, for septic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then it's an improvement over a failed system.
Wait. Doug?
No problem at all.
Penny?
Good with it.
All good.
Brendan?
I have no additional questions.
Amy?
It appears to meet the requirements of a negative finding, and we would also comment that we would not accept these resource areas as part of a notice of intent. We would typically confirm these under a notice if it was a raised rebuild, but for this project, it's great. Thank you.
Yeah. And not that I want to be here all night, but just Jeff, why wouldn't they have put that field over in the other corner of the backyard where it would be a little bit further away from the
Yeah, the grade is slightly higher over there, so it would result in the field being, you know, a foot or so, 1.5 feet taller, and you know that'd be enough that it would have to be a pump system and
Yep.
a pronounced mound.
Got it. Okay. And I wouldn't, if I could have a gravity system over a pumped one, just eliminates all that maintenance and other things. Okay. Anybody in the audience?
Seeing none.
Penny?
No, I make a motion for -3.
Second.
From Richard, all in favor, Doug?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
And Frank, yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of the night.
Thanks, you
Thank
too,
you.
Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
On
Stay?
December 4th, 2023, sure you would. During the 6 p.m. meeting, the Scituate Conservation Commission will act on the request of Robert and Margaret Mayer for determination of applicability of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate Wetlands bylaws for activity related to expanding existing deck at a single-family dwelling location 22 Town Way, Scituate, Mass. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the meeting will be available on the agenda posted on the website. We have a plan or anything?
It says only replace deck footings.
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor is on the call.
Yes, can the commission members hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay,
Good
perfect.
evening.
Good. Listen, being mindful of your time, I will give you a 1-minute project overview. I'm the owner of 22 Town Way, and we've submitted an application for essentially 2 deck footings that would be in association with a proposed deck expansion project at 22 Town Way. The property is located in an AE flood zone. There's no other resources areas that would be impacted or involved. The land is subject to coastal storm flow waters. And the proposed installation of 2 footings that you can see on the marked up set plans that we have would be entirely in the confines of an existing gravel driveway. And the footings are envisioned to be the precast pier footings sourced locally from Scituate Precast. And I do want to emphasize that the proposed footing work will not change the drainage, water, the flowage to our property, adjacent properties. And there really won't be any impact to vegetation or wildlife. And that's the overview. So I'll take any questions if there's any questions to be fielded.
I think you give some pointers to some of the other engineers. Amy?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, that was a great explanation of everything. Yeah, it looks like this project would meet the requirements of a -3 finding.
Yeah.
Under the Wetlands Protection Act. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Richard?
No questions.
Doug?
No, it's cool.
Penny?
It's fine.
No, it looks good.
Brendan?
Yeah, I have no questions. Thank you.
Anybody in the audience? I have no
Seeing none.
questions.
I
Great.
make a motion for a -3.
Second.
Okay. Thank you
Okay,
all.
Thank you very
you.
much. Have a good night.
Bye now.
All in favor, Doug?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Frank, yes. Wow.
How'd we do, Brendan, so far?
Doing great.
All right, let's Amy.
Moving.
Short and
Okay, you had
sweet.
5 minutes left. We can do this.
What do we got left?
Well, we got the minutes. I make a motion, we accept the minutes of October 2nd and 23rd as written.
That's
Second.
Penny. Second from who?
Doug?
Doug. All in favor, Richard?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
And Frank, yes. Thank you, Penny.
I can't do the orders because I wasn't here when you did Westgate.
Okay, one of you guys want to make a motion to
I
accept
make a
the
motion
orders?
to accept the orders for 8 Westgate as written.
It's a motion by Richard, a second by
I'll second that.
Brendan. All in favor, Doug?
Yeah. Yes, hoping
And,
I was
Frank,
there.
yes. Okay, we have an extension request for 281 Old Oak and Bucket,
Right, so that's related to the. actual
40B.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How much time do they want, Amy?
well, so typically under the first extension, you'd give them 3 years. They didn't request a particular time, but
We'll
3
give
years
them 3.
probably would be the first time, and then you can talk about it next time.
Okay,
I make a motion, we extend an extension to 281 Old Oak and Bucket Road for 3 years on their orders.
Second.
that's a motion from a second from Richard. All in favor, Doug?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Frank, yes.
Okay.
You got certificates of compliance.
They all good, Amy?
Yes,
Is 165 Summer? Is that the new house?
no, it was for, well, it was for a project that was never built. Actually, for an old project, it was like a driveway for a proposed, I guess, house driveway project that was never constructed.
Oh, I know. Okay.
And then 15 Bassin was the house that was built, and then that's coming in as a garage. Coming in as one of those onslaught of projects in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah,
And then 234 Central was a septic.
okay.
They did a
All
nice job
good.
too.
All good. Okay, my CPC. Frank?
Yep,
Oh, okay. We have 135,000 left from all the projects up the west end for the parking trail and the parking lots, the roadway in and the trails. So they would like us to rescind it back to CPC. And the thing is, Frank, that the money that came from open space will go back into our open space fund. Okay.
perfect. That's
So it
good.
isn't as though we're losing that money. And I really want to send this back because Sunset is still hanging out there, and there's like $595,000 just
Yes.
that have been sitting there waiting to be used. So I
Say
really,
no more.
oh,
Okay.
okay. So could
Right.
we just take a vote that it's okay for me to rescind the money next week?
Does
Do it.
anybody have any questions on that?
No, do it.
It's just, we get allocated a certain amount of money for CPC. If we don't use it, it just gets, as Penny says, it gets turned back in, but it goes into our open space. So we'll have other projects.
He'll be there for our next project.
Right.
And we
okay.
can't, we can only spend the money on what was voted at town meeting. So we can't do anything else with that money.
No, just the specifics that
Right,
we
right,
got it for.
right.
Okay.
Okay,
Good,
so
do
one
it.
of you folks want to make that motion?
I'll make a motion that we, okay, the rescission of $135,897 back to CPC. The
Anybody
project
wants-
completed.
Anybody want to second that?
Second.
All in favor, Doug,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
and Frank, yes. Okay, thanks so much for everybody dealing with
I
us
make a
tonight.
motion that we do what Brenda did tonight. Put a deadline on us. We do good then.
I like it.
Night was a long
Oh, I
night.
thought you guys would go over.
I need a motion to leave, otherwise I have to stay here all night.
You
Oh,
can leave.
You can stay. I make a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
I had
I'll
to think of
second
the
that.
word.
Brendan
Brendan
seconded,
second.
all in favor, Richard, Doug,
Yes.
Frank, yes. Thanks so much. Have a
See
good
you
night.
later. Bye.